Here is a Lakewood third generation slim box VN. It's a 200 something, 200i maybe. I'll look back on the videos and find out what it's called. I know Tori told me what it was at some point and then I forgot. There's a thing there says 200 DM. I've been told that that's a date code. I don't remember how to read it though. And it pulls 2.1 amps. This is, I suppose that you could say, one of the last like really good models that Lakewood produced. These get a lot of commentary and I think it's unnecessary. I think these are very good VNs. But obviously they were cheap. They were starting to get very cheap, and it's interesting to see how the cheapening out of the design changed over the years. This VN, they definitely took some shortcuts. The cabinet is ridiculously thin. So thin to the point where the blade comes within a millimeter of the guard, and if the guard ever was to warp at all, I mean, if it warped at all, it would hit the blade during operation. So that is kind of ridiculous. The cabinet is not as wide as previous models. It's not as tall. It's not as stable because it's so thin. So they saved some money in the material of building the frame. But that was about it. Everything else is still pretty good. You still have the typical, iconic, legendary Macmillan motor. Although this one I guess would be a little bit less powerful because it's only a 2.1. I think the others were 2.3. There's the informations. I can get them this way. Yeah, that's better. So there's that. You know, the guard is made of a plastic that didn't really stand the test of time. You can see it's starting to get pretty discolored up there at the top and brittle. It's starting to get kind of flaky. Oddly enough, the handle is okay still. And it hasn't really yellowed much. It's in generally pretty good condition. The motor is in really good shape. I think this is a pretty low hours unit. Still got the oil ports. It would have had the feet, but of course they broke off or gone missing or whatever, like they all do. There's a notation of it there, which ironically enough is also not standing the test of time. Unfortunately, something must have hit this at one point before it came into my possession, and so the guard is all jacked up over here. You know, if you lose a couple slats, you can fix that, no big deal, but this would be hard to fix that. Other than that, if it wasn't for that damage there, the thing would be pretty much mint. This does, of course, have the third generation blade, which also receives a lot of commentary, and I think that's unnecessary. I think these blades were pretty good. I think they were aerodynamically correct. They're relatively quiet, and they move the air just fine. And the material is still thick enough that it doesn't require a brace to hold it together. So I think it's a good fan. It's not the best thing that they've ever made, but I think it's a good fan. And I tend to think that it will overall stand the test of time. I never really thought about it before I did this video, but I was just thinking about doing the video and what I wanted to talk about. And it came to my mind that I never see these around here. I never see the first generation ones, and I don't see these often at all. I have seen them. I could think of one or two times where I've seen them over the years, but I by far saw the second generation VNs the most. And I mean, I'm speculating. I can't prove this, but I tend to think that would be a function of supply and demand. Perhaps at the time of the sale of the second generation ones, they were cheap enough that people thought they were a great deal, and there was enough demand that people wanted them, and so they flew off the shelves. Maybe the third generation ones just didn't. Maybe the Lasco ones were substantially cheaper, and so that's what people went for. I don't know. But to me, I don't see any reason why this wouldn't last as long as the second generation ones did. Okay, so let's get this plugged up and running here. We were testing. Excuse me. We're testing at 120 volts right on the nose. We wrote amps because that's what the thing is measured in. And let's start it up. I'm trying to figure out where the best place to put the camera is because the main source of light comes from the right. So really it should be kind of, I should angle the fan that way and then put the camera over here so that the lighting is better. Of course, then you see all my junk and the air isn't circulating into the fan that much because of the thing here. So we'll close this up a little bit and we'll move this over. We'll kind of try to do it like this instead this time. I think that'll get a better picture. Okay, here we go with the low. These still have the very nice, quiet, calm, low speed. It's very low. You know, it's not moving a whole lot of air, but it's very quiet. And I like a slow, calm, low speed. It's called low for a reason. It's supposed to be low. And that's what this is. You know, it's not moving much air. It's moving enough that you're going to get a pretty good breeze around the room, and it's doing so very quietly. This is great for the bedrooms in the summer. Put this in the bedroom window at night, perfect. You know, or use this while you're trying to watch TV, it's perfect. It's, you know, you're really feeling the air from it, but it's not obtrusive. It's very quiet. On low, it's drawing 0.65 amps, so obviously it's not very efficient. That's just because it's a shaded pole. It's 55 the watts and a power factor of 0.72. The newer box fans don't even draw half the amount of power that this one does, but they're so blaring loud it's ridiculous. This one is quiet. That's how it's supposed to be. A fan should be felt but not heard. Runs very smooth too, and despite the blade, the clock on the blade being totally out of whack, it seems to be in really good balance. You know, like peep this here on the side. I'll slow it down for a second. See, it's totally out, but it still seems to be pretty balanced. Okay, now let's go up to the medium. I will say I wish the medium was slower because you got low, which is really, really slow, and then high, which is quite strong, and medium leans much more towards high than it does to low. And it's shaking a little bit now, but not bad. And I can't really feel the blade being out of balance at all. And this is noisier than low. You can certainly hear this, and it's starting to get to a point where it would interfere with trying to have a conversation or something. But it's a very pleasant sound. It's easily ignored. And you know what else I like about this fan, and I don't know if this is this is a function of the cabinet or the blade set. But it throws the air out to the sides quite a bit. So even though it's only a 20-inch fan, when you're standing a couple feet away from it, you get, maybe a 4-foot radius of air. It really, it circulates the air quite nicely. Power draw is 0.99 amps, 88 watts, and a power factor of 0.74. We're getting a good breeze at this speed. It's pretty strong. Okay, now we'll go to the high. Oh, you know what? There was more of an increase there than I remembered. I guess I gotta take back my commentary about the medium. It actually is kind of pretty close to the middle. There's a good difference there. Okay. Yeah, it's been a while since I've used this fan. There was a pretty good difference there in the speeds. So now we're drawing 1.93 amps, which is right around what it's rated for. 174 watts, and a power factor of 0.75. So yes, 2 amps is a lot of power for a 20-inch fan, but it's reliable, it's going to last a long time, and it works well, so who cares? Very, very high velocity at this speed. Quite strong. Now I tend to think, there's going to be people that don't agree with this, but standing in front of this, I feel a higher velocity draft than out of the second generation fans. I think the second generation ones may move a higher volume, but the air velocity on this is very high. And it's very steady too. The second generation ones are kind of gusty. This is very steady. And while it is loud, it's not outrageous. It's not at all beyond reason. It's moving a lot of air. It's going to make some noise. I still can't really feel any balance issue with the blade. It is shaking ever so slightly, but it's really nothing to note. The blade is in pretty much perfect balance. Bearings are in very good condition, running freely. So there you have it, one of the last really good classic Lakewood box fans.